Wisdom is not an event. It's not a diploma you hang on your wall or a medal you wear around your neck. It's not something you attain once and for all, like a badge that proves you've arrived. No, wisdom is far more personal, far more dynamic. Wisdom is a decision you make every day. It is a mindset, a practice, a lifestyle. You don't wake up one morning fully wise. You wake up with the opportunity to grow wiser again. We live in a world that values instant results, quick fixes, and overnight success. But wisdom doesn't work that way. Wisdom is slow cooked. It's built moment by moment through reflection, struggle, mistakes, humility, and grace. And that's what makes it so valuable. If it were easy, everyone would have it. But true wisdom costs something. It demands something of you. It requires your participation, your patience, and your persistence. Every day you are faced with countless choices. What to say, what to think, what to do, how to respond, who to trust, where to invest your time, energy, and heart. Wisdom shows up in how you navigate those choices. And here's the powerful truth. You get to choose whether you operate from reaction or reflection, whether you speak from ego or empathy, whether you move in haste or in discernment. That is wisdom in action, not perfection, but intention. Too often we associate wisdom with age. We say that person is wise beyond their years, or with age comes wisdom. But age alone doesn't bring wisdom. Experience alone doesn't guarantee insight. It's what you do with those years, with those experiences, that counts. You can go through life, or you can grow through life. One is passive, the other is intentional, and wisdom always favors the latter. To grow wiser today, you have to be honest about what you're learning, not just intellectually, but emotionally and spiritually. Wisdom doesn't come from merely collecting knowledge, it comes from applying it. You might know what's right, but are you doing it? You might recognize the pattern, but are you breaking it? You might hear the truth, but are you living by it? That's the daily challenge of wisdom. It doesn't ask for spectators, it demands participation. Think about the people you admire for their wisdom. They are often not the loudest, but the most grounded, not the flashiest, but the most stable. They don't react wildly, they respond calmly. They don't speak just to be heard. They speak to bring light, and they didn't become that way overnight. They made countless small decisions to learn from failure, to pause before speaking, to listen even when they wanted to shout. They made space for reflection instead of rushing toward reaction. They chose the path of inner growth over and over again. It's easy to admire the fruit of wisdom in someone's life without recognizing the root system that supports it. Roots that were nurtured in storms, in silence, in setbacks. Wisdom doesn't avoid the hard times, it's forged in them. It's in the moment you could retaliate, but instead, you respond with grace. It's in the temptation to judge, but you choose understanding. It's in the pull toward pride, but you surrender to humility. Those are the quiet victories that wisdom is made of. Wisdom also requires a willingness to unlearn. Sometimes the greatest obstacle to wisdom is not what you don't know, but what you think you know that just isn't true. We carry around beliefs and assumptions that served us at one point, but now hold us back. Wisdom invites us to challenge those beliefs, not with shame, but with curiosity. Is this still true for me? Is this way of thinking helping me grow? Is this belief rooted in love or in fear? Questions like these open the door to transformation, and asking them takes courage. There will be days when you don't feel particularly wise, days when you say the wrong thing, act impulsively, or miss the mark. That doesn't mean you failed, it means you're human. The goal is not flawless decision-making, but faithful learning. Wisdom isn't about never falling, it's about rising each time with greater awareness. It's about seeing mistakes not as disqualifiers, but as teachers. In fact, some of the wisest people you'll ever meet are those who have fallen hard and got back up wiser. Humility is the soil in which wisdom grows. You have to be teachable. You have to be willing to say, I don't know, and be open to learning. The proud person may gather followers, but the humble person gathers insight. Pride shuts the door on growth. Humility flings it wide open. When you position yourself as a lifelong student of life, of people, of the spirit, then you invite wisdom to walk with you daily. There is also a sacred element to wisdom. It isn't just about strategy or logic. It involves discernment. It tunes into what is true, right, and good, even when the facts seem unclear or the path is foggy. Sometimes wisdom whispers in your spirit, wait. Sometimes it nudges you to act with urgency, and other times it asks you to surrender control altogether. This kind of wisdom is not manufactured. It is received. It flows from something deeper than intellect. It flows from divine alignment. To grow wiser today, you must slow down enough to listen. Wisdom is rarely found in noise and chaos. It often speaks in stillness, but many people move too fast to hear it, rushing from task to task, trying to keep up, trying to prove something, trying to escape silence. But silence is where wisdom often waits. In the pause between reaction and response, in the breath before the decision, in the quiet before the breakthrough. Wisdom also shows up in who you surround yourself with. Are you walking with people who challenge you to grow, who encourage you to think deeply, who call you to higher standards? The people you choose to learn from will either feed your ego or nurture your soul. Purposeful. Choose wisely. Iron sharpens iron. Seek conversations that stretch your understanding, not just ones that echo your opinion. Be around people who love you enough to correct you and wise enough to guide you. Every conversation you have, every book you read, every podcast you listen to, every mistake you reflect on, every prayer you whisper, every question you ask, each one is a chance to grow wiser. The key is to remain present, aware, and willing. Don't outsource your growth. Don't wait for life to slow down before you start. The wisest people are not those who had perfect conditions. They are those who grew where they were with what they had in the moment they were in. One of the most powerful things you can do each day is to ask, what did I learn today? Not just about facts or figures, but about yourself, about others, about what matters. Ask yourself, where did I show wisdom? Where did I miss the mark? And what will I do with that? This simple habit of reflection will grow your wisdom muscle like nothing else, because wisdom is not passive. It is intentional. It is nurtured by attention. Don't let the world trick you into thinking that wisdom is some distant, lofty ideal reserved for sages and philosophers. You don't need a robe or a scroll to walk in wisdom. You just need a willing heart, a teachable spirit, and a daily commitment to grow. You need the courage to be honest, the patience to reflect, and the faith to trust that each step toward wisdom, no matter how small, is a step in the right direction. Even when you don't feel it, even when progress feels invisible, know that you are becoming, you are maturing, you are evolving. And that in itself is wisdom, because the truly wise understand that they will never fully arrive. They are not obsessed with knowing it all. They are committed to learning what they can. They're not addicted to being right. They are devoted to becoming real. They are not driven by appearances. They are anchored in substance. So grow wiser today, not tomorrow, not someday, today, in the choices you make, the thoughts you think, the words you speak, in the way you treat yourself and the way you treat others. Let wisdom not be a trophy you chase, but a truth you live. Let it shape your steps, your standards, your soul. Because when you choose wisdom today, you shape who you become tomorrow. And that is a choice worth making, again and again, every single day. We live in a time when knowledge is everywhere, at our fingertips, in our ears, constantly flowing through our social feeds, and woven into every second of our waking lives. We wake up to headlines, scroll through tips and tutorials, binge podcasts, absorb TED Talks, and listen to self-help gurus preaching productivity and purpose. The digital age has blessed us with a wealth of information, but it has also created a silent danger, the illusion that knowing more automatically makes us wiser. The reality is starkly different. Information overload doesn't equal insight, and filling our minds doesn't guarantee transformation. What we need isn't just to consume, we need to discern. There's something deceptive about having access to endless content. It makes us feel like we're evolving, growing, and transforming, when in reality, we may just be running in circles. A person can recite 100 quotes on success and still not know how to handle failure. Someone might binge read psychology articles but still be unable to manage their own emotions. Knowledge is not the same as application. And true insight, the kind that shifts your life, that grounds you in purpose and direction, comes not from the quantity of what you know, but from the quality of what you understand and how well you live it out. We are saturated with noise. And in the midst of all that noise, clarity becomes a superpower. It's not about knowing everything. It's about knowing what matters. Insight doesn't scream for attention. It whispers to the soul. It's the quiet conviction in the middle of chaos, the still small voice that helps you prioritize peace over popularity, values over vanity, truth over trends. The pursuit of insight begins when we stop trying to impress others with how much we know and start seeking to impress God with how much we apply. There's a danger in mistaking movement for progress. Just because you're learning something new every day doesn't mean you're growing. Sometimes the most significant growth doesn't come from adding more, but from subtracting what no longer serves your purpose. You might need to unlearn old assumptions. You might need to unplug from voices that create confusion instead of clarity. You might need to be still long enough to hear what your heart has been trying to say all along. Insight demands intention. It's not a byproduct of scrolling, it's the result of stopping, reflecting, and aligning. Have you ever noticed that the most insightful people don't usually talk the loudest? They're not trying to win arguments. They're not addicted to attention. They don't parade their intellect or flex their knowledge. Why? Because insight humbles you. When you really understand life, when you see how fleeting time is, how fragile the heart is, and how sacred each moment can be, you don't waste time trying to appear wise. You devote your life to living wisely. You learn to speak less and listen more. You learn that depth will always outlast noise. We are drowning in a sea of data, and yet so many are starving for direction. How can that be? It's because information is everywhere, but direction is scarce. Insight gives you that direction. It filters out the fluff and focuses on the foundation. It reminds you that you don't need to have an opinion on everything, and you certainly don't need to absorb everything. Just because someone is speaking doesn't mean you have to listen. Just because something is trending doesn't mean it's true. Insight teaches you to filter what you hear, to test what you read, and to walk only in alignment with what feeds your purpose. Wisdom is found in the spaces we create between input and reaction. Insight doesn't come from the information itself, but from what we do with it. Think about it. Two people people can read the same book, watch the same documentary, or listen to the same message and walk away with completely different results. One walks away inspired, changed, aligned. The other walks away entertained but unchanged. What made the difference? Reflection, depth, a willingness to absorb truth and let it penetrate the surface. That's insight, and you don't need more content to gain it. You need more awareness, more honesty, more stillness. The problem with always seeking the next piece of knowledge is that it can become a form of procrastination. We say we're preparing when we're really postponing. We convince ourselves we're not ready to act because we haven't learned enough yet. But insight doesn't require perfection. It requires action. You don't need to know everything to make a difference. You just need to understand what matters most and move with integrity. The real power isn't in knowing, it's in doing. And doing begins when we trust that what we already know is enough to start. The mind can be full, but the heart can still be empty. That's what happens when we prioritize knowledge over wisdom, data over discernment. We live in a society that rewards information but often neglects insight. But the people who change the world are not those who merely gather facts. They're the ones who let truth change them. They're not the loudest, they're the clearest. They're not the most informed, they're the most aligned. They're not chasing a flood of voices, they're anchored in one, the voice of truth that transcends the noise. Insight brings freedom. It frees you from the pressure to keep up. It frees you from the need to know everything. It gives you permission to slow down, to simplify, to let go of what's popular and hold on to what's purposeful. It teaches you that the goal of life isn't to accumulate data, but to develop depth. And depth takes time. It takes patience. It takes silence. It takes courage. It requires you to stop consuming long enough to truly comprehend. Some of the wisest people are not on your favorite YouTube playlist. Some of the most insightful truths don't come in 5-minute clips or catchy sound bites. They come through stillness, through solitude, through seeking. They come when you shut out the noise and tune into the whispers of eternity. They come when you stop trying to impress the crowd and start trying to walk in alignment with your calling, because at the end of the day, it's not about how much you've heard, it's about how much you've changed. Don't be fooled by how loud the world is. Just because something is repeated doesn't mean it's right. Just because it's trending doesn't mean it's timeless. Just because it's popular doesn't mean it's powerful. The world is full of voices, but insight helps you discern the one that speaks truth. And that voice, still steady, unshaken, will never lead you astray. It doesn't shout, it doesn't sensationalize. It invites you to slow down, to listen, and to align your life with a deeper rhythm. The goal isn't to know everything. The goal is to become someone who walks in truth. The goal is to live with purpose, to love with clarity, and to act with intention. And none of that requires 1,000 podcasts or 10,000 posts. It requires you to pause and ask, what really matters? What is worth my time, my attention, my energy? What am I becoming in the midst of all this content? Because ultimately, the quality of your life will not be determined by how much you've consumed. It will be shaped by how deeply you've understood, how faithfully you've applied, and how courageously you've lived. Information is everywhere. Insight is rare, but insight is where the transformation begins. Not in the volume of what you know, but in the depth of who you become. And if you want more insight, don't look outward, look inward. Don't chase the next voice. Listen to the one within. Don't flood your mind. Free your soul. Simplify. Focus. Discern. Choose substance over style. Alignment over attention. Truth over trends. Because at the end of the day, the goal is not to be the most informed person in the room. It's to be the most aligned, the most grounded, the most free. True insight doesn't come from knowing more. It comes from needing less noise, less clutter, less distraction. When you finally strip away the excess, what remains is what's real. And that reality, clear, purposeful, and true, is the wisdom this world is starving for. The kind that lives not in the headlines, but in the hearts of those bold enough to tune out the noise and walk in the stillness of what really matters.